impeachment trial that this impeachment trial could unfold out of public view. Coming out of Washington, D.C., Americans tuning in to witness electrifying exchanges in the Senate impeachment trial of 45 might be in for the shock of their lives. Lawmakers could pull the C-SPAN plug and go into closed-door sessions at critical moments of debate over the conduct of the trial and the fate of the squatter. While it seems anachronistic today, given the expectation of a wall-to-wall news coverage and an emphasis on government transparency, impeachment rules and precedent allow the Senate to clear the chamber of journalists and spectators and bar the doors to senators who can talk so they can talk privately among themselves for hours on end. Senators met extensively in closed sessions during the impeachment trial of Bill Clinton back in '99, at least 6 times to debate questions of witnesses and whether to dismiss the articles of impeachment then, and also to conduct final deliberations much as a court jury would on whether to remove him from office or not. Such sessions also occurred in the impeachment trial of Andrew Johnson and have been typical in the impeachment trials of federal judges. But those events are in the past, and the notion of the Senate essentially going dark during such a momentous event might catch many people off guard. Senator John Thune of South Dakota, the number 2 Republican, said Thursday that it was hard to say whether or how often the 45 impeachment trial might move into a closed session, but gathering privately could occur as early as Tuesday, depending on how seriously Republicans and Democrats clash over ground rules for the remainder of the proceeding. Senators from both parties said they would like the trial to be as open as possible and are well aware of the troubling optics of shuttering the Senate while weighing the future of the squatter. I hope none of it is closed, said Senator John Cornyn, who's a Republican of Texas. That view might be shared by 45, who has suggested that he is counting on a public trial in the Republican-controlled Senate to discredit the impeachment initiated by House Democrats and vindicate him, proving him a frequent claim that he did nothing wrong in his dealings with Ukraine. Technically, he did everything wrong. But given deep disputes between the Republicans and Democrats over what the trial should entail, and a prohibition on senators taking on the floor, Senate officials said that some closed sessions were probably inevitable. They are quietly laying the groundwork for that option, hoping to tamp down any criticism that information is being hidden. They argue that closed session deliberations are the only opportunity senators have during an impeachment trial, when the Senate rules compel them to stay silent to actually discuss a dispute or argue a case. Still, lawmakers said any move to limit the public's ability to follow the course of events is likely to fuel skepticism about what the Senate is up to and whether the Republican majority is trying to protect 45 from embarrassing disclosures. That is especially the case now after the squatter stonewalled the House impeachment inquiry, blocking witnesses and refusing to turn over documents. Democrats have already accused the squatter's allies in the Senate of assisting in a cover-up by refusing to seek more evidence during the trial. Senator Richard Blumenthal, who's a Democrat of Connecticut, said closed sessions would undermine the credibility of the trial and simply feed the worst fears and exasperate the suspicion and distrust that people understandably already feel. As the trial approaches, Senate leaders have already locked down the Capitol in extraordinary ways, tightening control over movement by the news media and denying a request to allow laptops in the chamber to ease coverage of the proceeding. An extra level of screening for electronics is being added at the entrance to the press gallery in the chamber. Some lawmakers told reporters that there was a fear that someone might stash a recorder to try to capture deliberations in a closed session. The discussion in a closed Senate impeachment meeting are not classified. During the Clinton impeachment, senators often emerged to share what went on privately. Some even distributed the statements they delivered to their colleagues during final deliberations over whether to convict or acquit then President Clinton. But the flow of information is dependent on the willingness of participants to disclose what was said. Those who participated in the Clinton trial said the closed sessions were unique, with the cameras turned off and the lights turned down. Russ Feingold, the former Democratic senator from Wisconsin, said he found the atmosphere slightly creepy. Other former senators said that the closed doors, combined with the inability of senators to posture for the cameras or the news media, led to more free-flowing and elevated discussions as lawmakers expressed their views without fear of retaliation or today's equivalent of a social media beatdown. Joseph Lieberman, a former Democratic senator from Connecticut, said he remembered such debates in 1999 as some of the most meaningful of his time in the Senate. They were serious, he recalled. They were thoughtful. They respected the seriousness of the moment. It was quite different. The quality of the debate we just felt something historic was going on. Tom Daschle, who was at the time was a Democratic senator from South Dakota, and the party leaders shared the same sentiment. We had open and closed sessions during the Clinton trial, he said. Surprisingly, we found that the closed sessions were oftentimes more productive. There was more candor, less public positioning, fewer speeches directed towards the camera. There was a need for both open and closed sessions. Historians note that the expectation that government proceedings must be fully open is relatively new, and that the government founding document, the Constitution, was drafted in secret behind guarded doors. There is clearly a strong precedent for the use of secrecy in at least some phases of deliberation, said David Posen, a law professor at Columbia Law School who has studied the issue. That seems entirely defensible as long as it is buffered by transparency at the outset about the charge and transparency at the back and end about the ultimate outcome. Even though maximal transparency is not always conducive to honest and healthy deliberations, Professor Posen said, the Cultural Association of closed-door proceedings with bad motives and illegitimate actions has never been stronger. That might be an issue for the Senate if it has to shift into closed sessions to debate an impeachment that has already divided the public in an era when suspicions and conspiracy theories are always easily stoked on social media. This is for the American people to witness, said Senator Richard Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, as he urged that the Senate avoid closed-door sessions to the extent possible. For many of them, this will be the first time they have paid attention to this. 45 on Trial is a continuing series of articles offering reporting, analysts, and impressions of the Senate impeachment proceedings.